Hi, welcome back to Reading with Manny. I'm Manny and today I'm doing my May wrap-up. So, the last couple of months I've been doing it bi-monthly, but I thought this month I'm just gonna start doing it just monthly. I read 6.5 books in May, so that feels like a decent amount of number. That seems like a decent amount of books to talk about in one video. So this might be short or it might not, depending on how much I ramble about these books. Anyway, so May was the first month I played my TBR game. I rolled for 6 books and then I just chose an extra one for no particular reason. I was also participating in a historical fiction readathon hosted by Katie from Books and Things. I always leave the channel information down below. So that was a lot of fun. So I had to make my TBR game prompts correspond with the historical fiction prompts as well, and that was super fun. So as I said, I read 6 books. The first 3 I'm going to talk about, I already have a vlog on them, so I'll try to be brief, but who knows what's gonna come out of me at this point. So the first book was Imperium by Robert Harris. I'll always put the pictures up here. This month I read practically everything digitally, so yeah. So this book fit my under 400 pages prompt for my TBR game, and it fit the set in a time period you're less familiar with for Katie's readathon, because I mean, I am a history teacher and yeah, I am familiar with ancient Rome history, but I don't normally read historical fiction about ancient Rome, so I thought that fit. Imperium is the first in a trilogy. These are all books based on Cicero's, from ancient Rome, his biography. It's a fictionalized biography as if it was written by Tito, who was his slave and secretary and companion throughout his career. There is some evidence that Tito had actually written a Cicero biography, but it got lost. So Robert Harris just decided to recreate it, which I find amazing. This book was incredible. I can't wait to read the sequel this month. I think I'm gonna read it this month. So yeah, basically, there's not much more to say apart from I thought that it balanced really well the different aspects of Cicero's life. We have his political side, so there's a lot of political intrigue, especially because of the time period that he lived in. He is a man who isn't part of the patricians, of the nobility of Rome. He comes from nothing, so his ladder up to the higher places in the government is not as easy as for someone who has a lot of money or who has this ancestry that supports him and everything. So I thought that part was really amazing, and you could really see the different factions and the way that Cicero just masterfully got his way, I guess, because we do in the first book in Cicero's highest point, he's made he gets voted as consul, so that's amazing. That's the other thing. I really had to revise my Roman government, my Roman Republic terminology, because yeah, there was a lot. But then Cicero was also a masterful lawyer, defendant. I can't even remember the word that they used for that now. I don't think it was lawyer, but anyway. Hi, kitty. So we do dedicate quite a bit of time to Cicero's most high-profile cases, in particular one in which, for example, he prosecutes a corrupt politician, and yeah, that part was amazing. So if you like political intrigue / legal courtroom drama / historical fiction slice of life, because you do get to see Cicero's family life and the way that he treated everyone around him, his family, his friends, his slaves. All of that was just wonderfully done, and like I said, I can't wait to get to the next one, so 5 stars. Next, I read The Gifts again, picture here, by Liz Hyder. Again, I have already talked about this, so I'll try to be brief. This book fit my fantasy prompt for my game, and it fit the book with speculative element in it. Because, yeah, speculative historical fiction is my fave. It also kind of fit my favorite time period as well, and set in a country different than the one I'm from. So it fit quite a lot of prompts for the historical fiction readathon. So this book is about, it's a story of these women who spontaneously grow wings out of their backs, and with seemingly like no connection, no explanation, just out of nowhere they grow wings. And we do follow a lot of different stories, different women, some of whom, you know, grow these wings, and others who are sort of involved in the case in some way. And we also follow the villain of the story, but he doesn't start out as a villain. He starts out as a, you know, regular person. So yeah, that was one of the fascinating things about this book, is like seeing this character, like, you know, descend into, you know, very, very bad deeds. This book was really, really good. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed the different points of view, like I said, from all these different women who are all very different. They have different backgrounds, different motivations, different ways of dealing with life, and you are constantly rooting for all of them. So yeah, that was just great. And yeah, it felt like a really, really good piece of 19th century historical fiction, just with the added element of, you know, people growing wings. I don't really know what else to say about it, other than it's a new favorite. I can't wait to read more of her work. I think this was her debut novel. I'm not really sure. I should check that. But yeah, definitely new fave. All right, then I decided to read my bonus book. This is a book I chose because when I was, you know, figuring out my TBR, I was speaking with my best friend, and she recommended this piece of historical fiction for one of the prompts, and then I decided to go for another. But yes, I was really intrigued by this book, so I decided to just throw it in there and read it when I could. So that book is A Land So Wild by Eliza Warkentine. Again, still not sure if I'm saying her name correctly. I really, really should look that up. But anyway, this is historical fiction set again in the 19th century, so it would fit, you know, my favorite time period to read about. And it's based on the Franklin expedition through the Arctic, because we do follow this expedition who is looking for a previous expedition that got lost in the Arctic, and nobody knows what happened to them. So this other expedition goes after them. Now the captain of this ship has a connection, has a previous relationship with the captain of that other expedition, and he's joined by this crew of sailors and a naturalist who comes on board because his father is one of the ones who is financing this whole expedition. And yeah, things go from there. There's a lot of descriptions of ice and cold, which felt a bit much at points, especially towards the end. I thought that the end was a bit dragged out. Like, I don't know, I mean, it did bring home like the harsh realities of, you know, living through a winter in the Arctic. But yeah, I feel like I had already understood like the high stakes of, yeah, it felt a bit dragged out. But anyway, there are many interesting aspects to this book. First of all is that it's in epistolary form. It's an epistolary novel. So basically you follow the story through a bunch of telegrams, letters, and then, well, captain's log, ship's log, and the naturalist's log as well. And then you also follow, I mean, you follow the expedition, but you also follow the women who are left behind, like the fiance or the wife of the sailors and their correspondence, and the suffragette movement. You get to see all of that through their letters, and I thought that was really nice, like to see, you know, these women who were left alone for, you know, years, and they didn't even know if their husbands would come home. Yeah, I thought that was really well done. And you also get to see the Inuit perspective as well, told as if it was like oral history. And I thought that that was, that was a really important perspective to have, because these expeditions obviously had an impact on this population. They traded, but they also suffered at the hands of these expeditions. So yeah, I thought that was really important as well. And then it has the added bonus of a gay romance blossoming through the captain's log and the naturalist's log, which I thought was a really interesting way of developing a relationship, because obviously there's not a lot that they could actually say in those logs, because they would technically get read, but they work around it at the end. So yeah, I really enjoyed the book. I gave it 4 stars. Again, I felt that the ending was a bit too dragged out and with too many descriptions of ice and cold and no food and the risk of losing limbs, which terrifies me. But anyway, and then, as I mentioned in my vlog, I was reading reviews and I found out that this was originally Sherlock BBC fanfiction, and that just elevated it, because yeah, it really made sense who the characters were. I loved reading Sherlock fanfic back in the day, so yeah, it was an added bonus for me. Okay, moving right along. Then I could not decide what I wanted to read, so I actually did a try a chapter kind of thing video. I'll have it linked up above in case you want to check that out. But I did have 3 books to choose from. I had Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, The Mercies by Kira Millwood Hargrave, and The Witches of New York by Amy McKay. So I ended up going first, as you would have seen in that video. I ended up going with Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This I chose for my free pick in my TBR game, and it fit the classic historical fiction work for the readathon, because it was written in the 70s, so it counts as a classic by now. So this follows an African-American woman who, for some reason that is not really explained, travels back to the antebellum South in the 1800s. And yeah, there is a reason why she travels specifically to that place and that time, but the mechanics of the time traveling is not really explained. She can't really control it. She just disappears, and she could spend hours, days, months in the past and then come back, and not as long would have passed in the present. Yeah, it was so intense. It was so difficult to read at times. Like, obviously she arrives in a plantation and there are slaves, and she's African American, so her life obviously, yeah, would not be a great one there. So she goes through a lot in that time period. It's just, I think it's a very important read, but yes, it was hard. There's descriptions of punishments, beatings, whippings. Yeah, it's all just awful. It truly is. It truly was awful. I'm laughing because yeah, I think about it and it makes me want to cry. I really enjoyed Octavia E. Butler's writing. I could not stop reading this book, even though, again, as I said, it was really hard to read. But yeah, I found it fascinating, and I can't wait to pick up another one of her books this month. I'll be picking up Dawn, which is science fiction. So yeah, really excited about that. But yeah, that book, 5 stars, obviously, but oh boy. Moving on. Then after that, I obviously picked up the rest of the books that I had. So I went with The Mercies by Kira Millwood Hargrave, which I'll put up here. I can't believe I'm finally remembering her name properly. I hope. Imagine if now I've said it wrong 3 times by now. But anyway, I picked up The Mercies. This fit my historical fiction prompt in my game and the based on true events or real people prompt for the readathon. So this book is set in Scandinavia in the 1600s, which is not a period or place I really read about a lot. So that was really fascinating. There's this island way in the north of Norway that experienced this freak storm. So all the men who were out fishing at the time perished. So the women are left basically to fend for themselves. until, you know, help can arrive. They're in the middle of winter. It's just, how do people live in those conditions? Even now, I don't understand it. But in the past, like, how do they? I can't. Basically, the women, as I was saying, are left to fend for themselves. And what happens later when the island kind of gains the attention of the new commissioner, governor, I can't really remember what they call him, but there's a new king and he's trying to like reach out more in his kingdom and also expand Christianity. The new commissioner brings in a Scottish witch hunter to aid him in the, you know, in trying to see what these women were up to and if there's any witchcraft going on, because there was also the Sami population mixing in with those who had their own pagan rituals and things, and they were trying to eradicate those. Again, this was a very intense book to read. The living conditions just left me appalled. I can't believe that people actually lived like that. Yeah, it was very graphic in the descriptions of the cold, the hunger, the lack of hygiene, the lack of support from anything really. And we follow these women, again, amazingly well written female characters who again are all different. They all have their own motivations and their own backgrounds, and they still find a way to help each other, and until there's this rift between the ones who are trying their best to do what's right for the community and try to survive, and the ones who are trying to stick to what you know, their pastor minister says women should do. And then the witch hunter arrives with his wife. There's a relationship blossoming between the wife and one of the villagers from there, and that romance, that sapphic romance, was just incredible to read about. It was beautiful, but also heartbreaking, because of course this story doesn't end well. Spoiler alert, I guess. But you could imagine how this ends, because, you know, the witch trials were a real thing that happened at that time, and again, not pretty to read about. So yeah, it was a lot. It was definitely a lot, but enjoyable and important, but 5 stars, but intense, so beware, I guess. Then I started The Witches of New York by Amy McKay. I'll put the picture up here. By the time I started, I had like 4 days left in May. I got to around 35, almost 40%. I really enjoyed it. I finished it yesterday, so I will probably talk a bit more about that one in the June wrap-up, because I read most of it in June. It fit for another fantasy prompt that I got in my game, and I think I fit it for, hold on, let me check my journal. This was the bonus book for the readathon, because it's over 500 pages. That was the bonus thing. And again, it's from a country different than the one I'm from. It's my favorite time period. It was, yes. So I completed the readathon, technically. I mean, I did technically finish the last book, the 4th of June, but I think it counts. So The Witches of New York, again, historical fiction. It follows these 3 women who are all different ages, but they all somehow, you know, become friends. I don't know how to explain this book. There's a lot of witchiness going on. I'll talk more about it in my June wrap-up, so that I don't, you know, ramble on and on, because I technically only read the first part in May, but really enjoyed it. Spoiler alert, it was 5 stars. Anyway, so on the last Monday of May, the 30th, I finally got my hands on the last book I needed for the readathon. This is the only physical book I read this month, and it was less than 200 pages, but you know, whatever. So this is a Uruguayan work of historical fiction. It's called Asesinato en el Hotel de Baños by Juan Grompone. It basically means murder in the... I don't know how to translate it, because it's not baños as in toilets or as in bathrooms, it's baños as in baths. So it's a hotel that had baths, basically. So this follows 2 timelines. One of them is at the beginning of the 20th century, and the other one is in the 1960s. Basically, the timeline that we follow in the 20th century is fascinating because we followed the real person of Francisco Piria, who was this Uruguayan industrialist entrepreneur, and then, well, he developed a whole seaside town to the east of Montevideo, which is our capital city. It's called Piriápolis, very fittingly. So he had a quarry there, and in the beginning of this book, he's still like working on that, but he's slowly realizing that the future is in tourism, so he wants to build this big hotel, basically, this grand hotel, which still exists to this day. It's called the Argentine Hotel, and you could visit it. So, when I started reading this, I thought that the hotel that this was referring to was that Grand Hotel, which I actually visited when I was a child. Haven't been there in ages, but yes, it was a very grand hotel. But actually, the murder and the hotel that is mentioned in the title is a different hotel that Piria had built, which is now a building that is owned by the government, which is used by the different public schools from around the country to bring children on school trips to the seaside. For kids who live way in the countryside, it's probably the first time that they would see the ocean, or so I heard, because I was lucky enough to be born in Montevideo, and I have the ocean right a couple of blocks away. Well, not the ocean, it's still technically the river, estuary, whatever. I am going to digress a lot talking about this book, so I'm gonna have fun editing this. Anyway, so the hotel is that one, which again, I actually visited. I stayed a couple of nights in that hotel on a school trip, actually, and it was so creepy. The place was so creepy. This was 20 years ago, but still, the bedrooms were like those huge, like big rooms, as if like you were in a hospital, and there were like bunk beds, and they told us to bring flashlights because we could not turn on the lights to go to the bathroom if we wanted to at the middle of the night. It was terrifying. The showers were like going down some back stairs, and again, it was all very old and very creepy. Yeah, it had a very nice balcony that, you know, you could see the ocean from. Anyway, what am I talking about? Oh, well, yes, I got really excited when I realized that that was the hotel that it was talking about, because I was there. The murder is not a real thing. This is all fiction, but still. Anyway, back to the book. So in the first timeline, beginning of the 20th century, is when Piria hires this architect to, you know, develop his project for the seaside town that he wants to build to attract, you know, with the hotel and with all the attractions, to attract tourists to this pretty unpopulated part of Uruguay at this point. And then there's a murder. Someone gets murdered. And then the other timeline that we follow in the 60s is about this group of philosophers, logical people. I don't know, they have some sort of club from, you know, there are people from all around Latin America and even like Europe and United States. And they all convene here in Piriápolis. There's an acquaintance of one of the people involved in this society that has actually bought Piria's castle, and there's a ghost. So they are trying to investigate, you know, by using logic and all of that, try to figure out what happened to this man who was murdered, and if he's the ghost or not, who knows. That was a very, very long-winded explanation of what this book is for like how short it is. But I'm sorry, it's Uruguayan things, and this is why I think it's so interesting to read historical fiction from the place that you're from, because, you know, it's your own culture, it's your own history. Yeah, anyway, this was fascinating. Especially the epilogue at the end. This is the second edition, so it has an epilogue by like an author's note at the end, where he goes over, he does like a tour of Piriápolis, because some people actually didn't believe that the places that he talks about here are still, you know, that you could still visit them. This is written in the 90s. This was published the year I was born, so it's as old as I am. But you can still visit those places, and apparently people didn't doubt about the facts of the book, just the places. Anyway, I digress again. I give this 4 stars. You know, it's a product of its time. Women are described constantly as being very sexy and very appealing and very whatever, even though the 2 women that appear at the end are philosophers or scholars or some way. And he does show you know, their intelligence apart from their beauty, but still it was kind of jarring at points. But again, it's a product of its time. Like, I get it. It was still pretty progressive for the time, I guess. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed more the first part, the one, you know, with Pedia and everything, than the second part. But yes, really enjoyable. Really nice to, you know, get to see my own history and my own country represented in a book. So yeah, that was cool. Also, it's the first time in months that I've read something in Spanish, so that was great as well. Anyway, that wraps it up. Again, I will talk about The Witches of New York more in my June wrap-up. Again, I'm gonna have a lot of fun editing this because, yeah, I rambled on. I've been, you know, talking non-stop for 35 minutes now, so yay for me. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know down in the comments if you have read any of these books or what you read in May. What was your favorite one? What was your least favorite one? I don't know, let's chat about books in the comments. And subscribe if you haven't already. I will be trying to vlog my way through June because I am participating very loosely in Whatever You Like-a-thon, or whatever-thon. So yeah, stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, happy reading!